The moment that changed two worlds. The alien woman screamed the moment her new eyes opened. Not because of pain, but because of what she saw. Across the silent medical chamber of the human research station, she stared at something outside the window, something no one else could see. Her voice trembled with fear as she whispered one impossible sentence. "Your stars are not empty." And that was the moment humanity realized the universe had been hiding a terrible secret. A strange patient. Orbiting a quiet blue planet called Erebus 9, the human research station Atlas Horizon floated in darkness like a lonely lighthouse. Inside the station, Dr. Marcus Hale, a human neurologist and experimental bioengineer, prepared for the most important experiment of his life. The patient lying on the medical table was not human. She belonged to an alien species known as the Lunari. The Lunari were intelligent, peaceful, and incredibly advanced in science. But their species had evolved in deep underground oceans on their home world. They had never developed eyes. For millions of years they lived using vibration, heat signals, and complex echosenses. To them, the concept of sight was as strange as breathing water. Until humans arrived. Humans were strange to the Lunari. Loud, curious, reckless, creative in ways that made no sense. But humans also had something rare in the galaxy. They tried impossible things just to see if they would work. And Dr. Marcus Hale was the most stubborn of them all. The impossible idea. The Lunari woman on the table was named Lyra. Her species had volunteered her for a dangerous experiment. Human scientists believed they could build a neural visual interface, a device that could translate light into signals the Lunari brain could understand. No alien species had ever attempted this. Even the Lunari believed the idea was ridiculous. But humans had a long history of doing ridiculous things successfully. Marcus adjusted the neural console nervously. "If this works," he muttered, "you will become the first Lunari to see the universe." Lyra's smooth silver skin glowed faintly under the surgical lights. Her face had no eyes, only two gentle indentations where the interface implants had been connected. Her voice echoed softly through the translation speaker. "Dr. Hale, what is sight?" Marcus paused. That question had followed him for months. How do you explain vision to someone who has never known light? He thought carefully. "Sight," he said slowly, "is the ability to witness the shape of reality." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "And humans believe this is useful." Marcus smiled. "Sometimes." Activation. The medical room became silent. Marcus pressed the activation switch. Thousands of microscopic biofibers awakened inside Lyra's brain. Artificial optic nodes connected to her nervous system. Outside the station window, distant stars shimmered like diamonds. For the first time in Lunari history, light entered her mind. Lyra's body stiffened. Her breathing accelerated. Her voice trembled. "Doctor, something is happening." Marcus watched the monitors carefully. "Your brain is learning a new language," he said calmly. "Just breathe." The neural system continued translating photons into signals. Shapes began forming in Lyra's mind. Color, depth, movement. The universe unfolded around her like a storm of information. And then her new eyes opened. The first sight. Lyra gasped. Her entire body shook. "Too bright," she whispered. Marcus dimmed the room lights immediately. "Easy. Your brain is adjusting." Lyra slowly sat up. Her newly formed eyes, dark and reflective, moved across the room. She stared at the ceiling. Then the equipment. Then the doctor standing in front of her. "You," she whispered. Marcus chuckled nervously. "Yes. That's me. Humans look strange at first." She studied his face intensely. "It moves. That's called expression." Lyra reached forward slowly and touched his cheek. Her fingers trembled. "You are alive in a different way." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I'll take that as a compliment." For several minutes she remained silent, absorbing the world. Every shadow fascinated her. Every movement shocked her. Even the smallest reflection seemed magical. For a species that had never known sight, reality had just expanded infinitely. Learning the universe. Hours passed. Marcus patiently explained the basics. Colors. Light. Distance. Stars. Lyra listened with the curiosity of a child discovering the world for the first time. When she finally stood up, she nearly walked into a medical cart. Marcus caught her. Depth perception takes practice, he said. Lyra laughed softly. Your universe is very complicated. Welcome to human problems, Marcus replied. Eventually she walked slowly toward the massive observation window. Outside, space stretched endlessly. Billions of stars shimmered in silent beauty. Lyra froze. For a long moment she said nothing. Marcus waited quietly. Then she whispered the first honest description of sight. It is overwhelming. Marcus nodded. Yeah, that's space. The terrifying discovery. Lyra stared into the endless sea of stars. At first she saw only light. But then something changed. Her expression slowly shifted. Confusion. Fear. Shock. Her breathing became unsteady. Marcus noticed immediately. What's wrong? Lyra pointed toward the darkness between two distant stars. There. Marcus squinted through the glass. He saw nothing. Just empty space. Lyra shook her head slowly. No. Her voice dropped to a whisper. There is something moving. Marcus frowned. Probably cosmic radiation distortion. Lyra stepped backward. Her entire body trembled now. It sees us. Marcus blinked. What? Her voice cracked with terror. Dr. Hale, the darkness between the stars. She stared directly at the invisible void. It is alive. Marcus turned back to the window. Still nothing. But then the station's external sensors suddenly flickered. And the lights in the medical bay dimmed. Somewhere deep outside the station, something enormous moved across the stars. And for the first time in human history, someone had actually seen it. Lyra did not move. She stood in front of the observation glass with her new eyes wide open, staring into a section of space that looked empty to every human sensor on the station. Her breathing was shallow. Her hands trembled at her sides. Dr. Marcus Hale looked from her face to the window and back again, trying to decide whether this was fear, sensory overload, or the first real proof that the experiment had done something no one expected. Then the station lights failed for half a second. Not a full blackout. Just a blink. But in a research station, a blink was enough to turn confidence into alarm. Marcus spun toward the wall console. Atlas Horizon, report. The station AI answered at once, calm and cold. External sensor grid disruption detected. Source unknown. No collision alert. No debris field confirmed. Lyra whispered, it moved. Marcus looked up sharply. Where? Closer. He could not see anything. Only stars. Only black space. Only the quiet lie of the universe pretending to be empty. Then the main medbay door opened and Commander Sonar Voss entered with two security officers close behind. She was tall, sharp-eyed, and never wasted a step. Doctor, she said, the outer array just glitched across 6 decks. Tell me this has a boring explanation. Marcus gave her a tired look. I was about to invent one. Sonar's eyes shifted to Lyra. What happened? Lyra turned slowly toward her. She still moved like someone walking through a dream. There is a shape in the dark. It hides between stars. Your machines do not see it. But I do. One of the security officers muttered, that's comforting. Sonar ignored him. Doctor. Marcus rubbed his jaw. Her new visual system may be picking up something outside normal human range. The implant doesn't just copy human sight. It translates a wider band of radiation and neural patterns into visual meaning. We gave her vision, yes, but maybe not only vision. Sonar stepped closer to the glass. Can you track what she sees? Marcus hesitated. Not yet. Then start. The commander's voice was flat and final. It was the kind of voice humans used when panic was trying to enter the room and they refused to let it. Marcus pulled a mobile scanner from the equipment rack and began syncing it to Lyra's neural interface. His fingers moved fast. Fear made him sharper. Around him, the station felt different now. Smaller. More fragile. Less like a fortress of steel and science, and more like a thin shell floating beside a predator. Lyra kept staring out the window. "It is watching the station," she said. Sonar's hand moved near the sidearm at her belt. "Can it attack?" Lyra blinked. "I do not know. But it is curious. And hungry." That made the room go silent. Marcus forced himself to keep working. Neural capture live in 3, 2, 1. A holographic display rose over the scanner. At first it showed static, then blurred color, then a strange overlay of shapes and patterns no human eye could naturally see. The stars appeared stretched, surrounded by halos and deep lines of invisible energy. The empty space between them looked torn, like black cloth pulled over broken glass. And there it was. Not clearly. Not fully. But enough. A long shape glided through the void, almost flat against reality itself. It was impossible to measure. Impossible to focus on. Its edges seemed to vanish each time Marcus tried to lock them. The thing looked less like a ship and more like a wound moving through space. One security officer whispered, "What the hell is that?" Marcus answered without taking his eyes off the display. "Something no one has ever seen before." Sonar's face hardened. "Record everything. Send a burst packet to Earth Command and the Lunari delegation." Marcus nodded. Then the station shuddered. Not from impact. From resonance. A deep vibration moved through the floor and into their bones. Monitors flashed red. On the wall display, one by one, outer communications relays went dark. "Report," Sonar snapped. The AI replied, "Station hull intact. Communications partially disabled. Unknown field interference increasing." Lyra pressed both hands against her head. "It hears us now." Marcus stepped toward her. "Lyra, stay with me. What is it doing?" Her voice came out tight and unsteady. "It is not one mind. It is many minds folded together. It moves through silence. It hunts by signal. It found you because you shine too brightly." Sonar turned. "Doctor, translate that into something useful." Marcus swallowed. "I think she means our transmissions. Engines, radar, comms, reactor output. Human technology is loud." The commander gave a humorless smile. "Of course it is. Humans enter the galaxy and immediately become the loudest species in the room." The station shook again, harder this time. Warning sirens rose across the deck. One by one, panels began reporting false contacts, then no contacts, then impossible contacts. The creature, or whatever it was not just hiding from sensors. It was teaching them to lie. That frightened Marcus more than anything. Not because humans lacked weapons. Not because the station was weak. But because humanity's greatest strength had always been understanding systems, breaking patterns, and forcing the impossible to make sense. And now they faced something that broke the act of understanding itself. Sonar opened a command channel. "All decks, Battle Protocol Grey. No weapons fire until target solution confirmed. Repeat, do not fire blind." Marcus looked up. "That may be a mistake." She looked at him sharply. "You have a better idea." He stared at the shifting image from Lyra's eyes. Then, slowly, a dangerous little thought began to grow. Humans did not always win by being stronger. Sometimes they won by being stranger. He zoomed in on the neural feed, studying how the creature distorted the space around it. Its movement was not random. It reacted each time the station sent an active scan. Each pulse made it slip, adjust, bend. It fed on detection. It wanted to be searched for. Marcus felt a spark jump in his mind. It doesn't hide from attention, he said quietly. It uses attention. Sonar frowned. Explain. Marcus pointed to the display. Every time we ping it with sensors, it changes shape and position. Not to escape. To control what we think we see. It's not invisible. It's manipulative. It survives by guiding perception. Lyra turned toward him, suddenly focused. Yes. It bends the idea of itself. Sonar crossed her arms. And your point? Marcus's tired face slowly came alive. This was the expression he wore when standing too close to a terrible plan. My point, he said, is that humans are very hard to fool once we realize we're being fooled. The commander stared at him for 1 second, then 2. Doctor, why do I feel like you're about to suggest something unsafe? Because I am. He pulled up the station architecture and overlaid it with Lyra's neural data. It hunts signal. It controls sensors. It expects machines to respond in predictable ways. So we stop being predictable. We shut down the active grid, kill standard scans, and feed the station through manual analog routing. No pattern. No clean signal. No digital logic for it to bend. One of the officers blinked. You want to run a space station like a machine from a museum? Marcus pointed at him. Exactly. Old cables. Manual switches. Human hands. Improvised relays. The kind of beautiful nonsense our species invented before everything got smart. Sonar's eyes narrowed. Would it work? Marcus looked at the dark shape on the feed. I don't know. But whatever that thing is, it has probably spent a very long time hunting civilizations that trust elegant systems. He looked up at the commander, and now there was steel in his voice. It has never met humans with a toolbox. For the first time since entering the medbay, Sonar smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a soldier who had just been reminded that humanity's greatest weapon was not power. It was refusal. Do it, she said. And outside the station, hidden in the dark between stars, the ancient hunter moved closer. Just as the humans began to think like humans. The creature outside the station moved silently through the darkness. No engines. No light. No sound. Just a vast shape gliding between the stars like a shadow that had learned how to hunt. Inside Atlas Horizon, however, everything had changed. Commander Sonar Voss stood in the operations deck watching technicians rip open panels and drag thick bundles of old cables across the floor. Sparks flickered. Tools clanged. The quiet, perfect automation of the research station was disappearing piece by piece. And in its place came something messy. Something unpredictable. Something very human. Dr. Marcus Hale crouched beside a half-open terminal, manually rerouting power through a clumsy stack of analog converters. Sweat rolled down his forehead as he tightened the last connection. Okay, he muttered. Digital sensors are blind, confused, or lying to us. So we stop trusting them. He flipped the switch. Across the station, dozens of old mechanical monitors flickered on. Grainy screens filled with raw signals, simple wave patterns, and crude visual markers. The system looked ancient. But it was honest. Lyra stood beside the observation window again, staring into space with the strange vision Marcus had given her. She could still see the thing in the dark. The creature. It had moved closer. Now it stretched across the sky like a living scar between two star clusters. Its body was enormous, larger than any spacecraft humanity had ever built. But it was not just size that made it terrifying. It was intelligence. The creature had hunted civilizations for centuries, maybe longer. It had learned how advanced species relied on their machines, their networks, their perfect digital logic. And then it twisted those systems until they failed. It had never needed weapons. It simply let technology betray its creators. But this time, the humans had unplugged the rules. Lyra whispered quietly, "It is confused." Marcus looked up immediately. Explain. It is searching for the station in the old way. It expects patterns. Predictable signals. It expects logic. Sanar crossed her arms. And we've given it chaos. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes. Marcus stood and stretched his stiff back. Good. Because humans are very good at chaos. The station trembled again as the creature drifted closer. Outside, space seemed to warp around its presence. Light bent strangely near its body, as if the universe itself was struggling to decide how to display it. On the crude analog screen, a faint distortion line appeared. One technician pointed. Contact. Marcus rushed over. The signal wasn't clean. It looked like static crawling across the monitor. But unlike the digital systems, this one could not be tricked into rewriting reality. The creature was there. And for the first time, humanity could see it. Commander Voss studied the display. Weapons. Marcus shook his head. No. She looked at him sharply. Excuse me. Marcus tapped the screen thoughtfully. Think about it. This thing hunts advanced civilizations. That means it survived countless wars. It expects weapons. It expects resistance. So what do we do? One of the officers asked. Marcus smiled slowly. We confuse it. Sanar sighed. Doctor, that is not a plan. Oh, it absolutely is. Marcus grabbed a handheld transmitter and began adjusting its signal output. Lyra watched him curiously. What are you doing? Marcus's eyes sparkled with dangerous creativity. Talking. Commander Voss frowned. To the creature. Marcus nodded. Humans have a long history of communicating with things we probably shouldn't. The transmitter crackled as Marcus tuned the signal. Instead of a normal communication burst, he began sending a strange sequence of signals. Irregular pulses. Random frequencies. Chaotic patterns. To any normal system, it would sound like nonsense. But to the creature, which hunted signals and patterns, it was something else entirely. Outside the station, the shadow in space stopped moving. Lyra gasped softly. It heard you. Marcus grinned. Good. The transmitter continued sending its chaotic stream of signals. The creature slowly drifted closer to the station. Closer. Closer. Inside operations, several crew members held their breath. One officer whispered nervously, Doctor, you do realize you may be inviting the monster over for dinner. Marcus shrugged. Maybe. Then he pointed at the screen. But look. The distortion pattern around the creature was changing. It was no longer bending signals to hide itself. It was trying to understand the human transmission. Trying to solve it. Trying to make sense of something that had no logical pattern. Commander Voss suddenly understood. You're giving it a puzzle. Marcus nodded. A messy one. Lyra watched the creature carefully with her strange new sight. It is thinking. Marcus leaned against the console. Perfect. For the first time since the creature had appeared, the station stopped shaking. The interference field weakened slightly. The monster was distracted. Marcus lowered the transmitter power slowly. If this thing evolved to manipulate intelligent systems, then its brain works on patterns, predictions, logic structures. He smiled. And humans are famously terrible at those. One of the engineers laughed nervously. That might be the most honest description of humanity I've ever heard. Outside the station, the enormous shape shifted again. But this time it did not move closer. It moved away. Slowly. Cautiously. Like a predator that had just discovered its prey was behaving in a completely unexpected way. Lyra exhaled in relief. It is leaving. The entire operations deck went silent. Then someone whispered, "We scared it." Marcus shook his head. No. He watched the creature vanish into deep space. We confused it. Commander Voss looked out at the stars. And sometimes, she said quietly, that's even better. The station lights stabilized. Communications slowly returned. And for the first time since the strange experiment had begun, the crew of Atlas Horizon realized something extraordinary. Humanity had just survived an encounter with a cosmic predator older than their entire civilization. Not with superior weapons. Not with advanced alien technology. But with something far stranger. Improvisation. Lyra stepped closer to the observation window once more. Her new eyes studied the endless stars. "So this is humanity," she said softly. Marcus stood beside her. "Yep." She looked at him. "You solve cosmic threats with confusion." Marcus shrugged. "It's worked so far." Lyra smiled gently. Then she looked back at the universe. And somewhere in the darkness between distant galaxies, the ancient hunter continued its silent journey. But now it carried a new memory. A strange, unpredictable species that did not behave like prey. A species that looked at impossible problems. And decided to experiment anyway. And that was the moment the universe quietly learned something important. Humanity might be small. Humanity might be young. But humans had one terrifying advantage. They were creative. And creativity was the most dangerous force in the galaxy.